today's world, I think the state of the world creates a very compelling case for India and Australia to do more with each other. For quite a few years now, for more than a decade, I think we can see the direction the world is going in. It's in transition now. That's a very nice word. It pretty much describes anything at any time. But the bottom line is the sense of stability, the factors of permanence in our calculation that we had for many decades have in the last decade, there have been question marks. And there have been question marks. I mean, we can debate it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it doesn't matter. It's happening. And it's necessary for countries like India and Australia here to work more closely to shape the direction in which the world is going. But there's a much more immediate context, and the context is especially that of the last 3 years. There was already this transition going on, and there were I think, trade concerns, there were financial concerns, and then came the COVID. And the impact of the COVID has been devastating on the world economy. Perhaps we in India and Australia feel it much less. As someone who travels a fair amount to other parts of the world, we look at Africa and Central America and some other parts of Asia. I look at my own neighborhood, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal. We can see really how much damage, economic damage, social damage, psychological damage the COVID has done. And then, if that wasn't enough, there came the Ukraine conflict. So today, I would actually, in terms of foreign policy, for me, one of the big goals would really be how do you de-risk the global economy? And you de-risk the global economy, one, by building more reliable and resilient supply chains, which is exactly one of the initiatives that India and Australia and Japan have embarked on. Two, how do we address the challenges of the digital world much more securely, much more credibly? And there, that's a whole new set of issues and a set of policies out there, which have, it's not without its geopolitical aspects. And the third, of course, what are the important relationships which can serve as stabilizers, really, for a sort of world economy heading into choppy waters for quite a few years ahead. Now, what we are going to see, I think, on the bilateral front, hopefully, is your Senator referred to the passage of the ECTA, and I think in a larger sense, there's the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, which sort of sets the narrative, the framework, really, for the relationship. And how to take it forward, I think it's hugely helpful to have high-level contacts, to have CEO forums, to have trade ministers. So in the coming days and weeks, I expect to see a lot of activity on that front. And I think it's really when business meets business, when prime ministers meet prime ministers, when trade ministers meet, and even foreign ministers have their role, when we all do our business in a much more regular, intensive, constructive manner, I think that's hugely helpful to taking the relationship forward. Now, if I can switch track and speak a little bit about how I see the landscape today in India. We have this annual budget exercise. I'm sure you have your version of it as well. And what the budget exercise does is it's like a public stock-taking of the national economy. And not just we call it budget, but actually the budget has alongside it a kind of an economic, shall I say, an economic strategy and an economic prognosis for a much longer period than just a year which the budget covers. So they come as a package. The budget, of course, course corrects every year for that larger picture. Now, since we're just coming out of the Parliament session last week after the presentation of the budget, I would sort of underline to you today that in India we feel that we, relatively speaking, we have come out of the COVID challenge quite strongly. I mean, there's a human cost. All of us know that. I think there's not a single family that I know which hasn't had some kind of COVID loss. But having said that, the COVID period, one, we responded to it in a way in which it was fiscally sustainable. In fact, a lot of reforms were carried out under the COVID stress. There was a lot of creativity, which also was implemented on scale on the field, also because of the COVID pressures. And in many ways, I think decisions which may have otherwise taken us much longer, for example, ramping up our health, the resources we devote to health. I think a lot of these decisions really got fast-forwarded. So the sense today in India really is of a certain amount of economic confidence. A confidence also in our ability to manufacture, to create, to collaborate in many more areas. We are targeting 7% growth this year, but we do expect it to improve over the next 5 years. And definitely we think we would stay in that 7 to 9% range at least for a decade and a half. You can, in India today, see that reflected in the investment climate. both in the flow of FDI, FII, as well as in the investments which the government itself is leading. The capital outlay in the budget this year is actually about a third more than it's ever been before. Now, having sort of made that point that you're really looking at a sort of bullish economic